One, uh, don't idolize people.
Hmm.
Everyone has their own journey and their own life. Everyone is working towards their own goals. Don't try to just idolize someone. The
Okay.
second is be open in saying, I don't know, but then go back and figure out what you don't know.
Hi everyone, welcome again back to Make It Happen Online podcast. This is an episode 4, and we have Anant Shrivastava with us. We are so basically we do this initiative to help knowledge entrepreneurs like you to help grow and scale your business furthermore. I myself am a CEO and co-founder at Miho. Miho is basically a platform that helps you knowledge entrepreneurs like you, Anant, and other folks out there to create, grow, and manage online businesses. Why I'm saying businesses because we think that your course is also a business and not a side hustle or a side gig. It's more like a business that you would want to grow someday. So that's where Miho comes into the picture, and this is a small initiative to add value to what you do today and help you learn better on how to do it. So guys, please help me welcome Anant today. Hi Anant. Welcome on this podcast. Thank you for doing this for us.
Hi,
Uh,
Anuj.
yeah. Anand, can you quickly introduce yourself? Like I know a lot about you, but I would really want you to introduce yourself to the audience in your own words, and we can walk through that.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Anant Shrivastava. I've close to about 15 years of corporate experience, about 17 years of training experience. I have been living and breathing information security for, I think, about 12 years now. And before that, I have been a server admin. I have been hooked up to geeky stuff, Linux, and all those since, I think, 2000 onwards. Been active in community circuits, ranging from the older days of Linux user groups to the current scenarios of Null, Garage for Hackers, OWASP, and other initiatives. So pretty much equal contributor in the corporate space, equal contributor in the community space. Uh, if I define myself, I would define myself as a researcher, trainer, and an InfoSec professional. Uh, I've also got a bunch of different open source projects of mine, ranging from Temo platform, which is dedicated around Android security, to Code Vigilant, which is around code assisted pen testing, to Hacking Archives of India, where I basically collect anyone and everyone who is basically talking about InfoSec in public spaces. So that's kind of the public stuff. Been teaching and training for a very long time now, and starting from Linux administration to nowadays, I basically deal with Android security, web application security, and infrastructure security sort of areas. DevSecOps is another interesting keyword that I generally deal with nowadays. Supply chain security and those sort of niche areas, they are the areas where I'm basically focusing at this point. So that's in brief about me.
Hmm.
And yeah, in terms of trainings, I've trained at smaller events like private gatherings to uh, Indian conferences, NullCon, CoCon, whatever, to international conferences, Black Hat, DEF CON, and a bunch of different places. I've spoken there, I've trained there, I've presented my projects there. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of who I am.
Interesting. So Anant, this brings me to my first question is basically how has been your journey pivoted from being a researcher to becoming a full-fledged security guy and then moving towards teaching as well in the profession? What were so let's get into more details. Like say for example,
Okay.
what was the first pivot? Like when did you
Yeah.
shift from a researcher to becoming a security expert? Like what was that
All
pivot
right.
like?
So I won't say there was a pivot from researcher to security professional. Researcher background is always there.
Okay.
The infosec part is also there.
Okay.
The pivots that have happened is, so like I said, 2000 is when I was introduced to Linux. It was like the cool thing. I think my computer teacher basically said, hey, I don't know what this is,
Hmm.
but people who know what this is are cool people. So that
True.
was kind of the start of the journey
Yeah.
into Linux circuit. I installed, played around with Linux. I remember back in those days, it was, I think, uh, 75 megahertz processor speed, about 1 GB hard disk space was like the luxury of those times. And then, so From that point onwards, I got involved into, say, community circuits, got interested into the admin space. So initially, whenever anyone starts with Linux or like computers, generally people start with the programming aspects of things.
Okay.
Programming was never the area where I wanted to focus a lot. I started
Mm.
focusing on the admin piece, getting the environment ready for people to basically do whatever they want to do.
I remember the
Yeah.
switch, like Microsoft did a crackdown across all colleges and schools one particular year. I don't remember the year. Because I think somewhere around
Yep.
2005 to 7, they did a crackdown across all schools and colleges, saying that people who are using a pirated copy of Windows
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be
I
banned off.
remember. Yep,
And
yep,
that's
I
when
remember.
suddenly the Gujarat government, I was studying in Gujarat itself then also. The Gujarat government took a turn saying that was now we would want to promote open source. And what is open source? Let's just Linux. Let's switch Linux. Suddenly our books changed from Windows to Ubuntu, and nobody as a teacher also knew what is Ubuntu, why
Yep,
Ubuntu, how Ubuntu, and what terminal and what not. That switch was
yep,
very,
yep.
very, very different that time. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that. Makes sense. Makes
So things started with being the cool factor to a point where it was like, okay, I subscribe to the philosophy, I subscribe to why we are doing the way we are doing things. And then I started realizing because I am able to customize things, I have more power in my hands. And
sense.
compiling kernels was like child's play at that time. We
True.
would play around with kernel compilation and whatnot. And yeah, those were the learning days. Then I got very much interested into the administrative aspect of things and started working towards Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Debian on the other side, and was building a portfolio around that. The first company where I worked, partially I was also responsible for managing the small setup that we had. I was the server admin of that space.
Makes sense.
Now, this is where I started reaching a bottleneck where uh, admin work was mostly offshore work, which meant late nights, night calls, night timing, pager duty, and all those stuff around it. And I was getting into a zone, okay, what are the other options?
Hmm.
So while trying to explore that, so this happened around 2010. So while trying to explore other options, I realized I know how to configure systems. I generally try to configure them in a way in which others cannot do some damage to the system.
Interesting.
Why not start focusing on what is in that space? And that's
Hmm.
I started looking at how to defend systems.
Hmm.
And then it was far more easier to start learning how to attack systems because defense is hard, attack is easy.
True.
It is controversial statement, but defense is hard, attack is easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now came the part where I started looking at, okay, what are the options? What are the possibilities of getting into an infosec space?
Hmm.
So that is where I got my first job, a contractual job working for a bigger firm. And that's where I was doing a lot of log monitoring from different sources. So there was
Hmm.
AV logs, WebSense logs,
Hmm.
to different softwares that they have installed in their environment. All the logs were pooling in. So it was not effectively a attack focused infosec job. My first job was more of a SOC and a log analysis kind of a job.
Hmm.
From there, I then moved into a more pen testing kind of roles. And then parallelly, because I had interest into server admin and I had interest into, say, Android security, I started branching out into that area on personal time. And
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
where the whole having development exposure, having admin exposure, and knowing about security gave me a better picture and a better understanding of the environment. So that
Okay.
was the first major shift that happened.
Okay.
These There's one more shift that has happened, which has happened, I think, around 2017 timeframe, 16-17 timeframe, which
Is it when you became a full-time trainer kind of a role or something else?
exactly a full-time trainer, but effectively I joined a company called Not So Secure.
Hmm.
And this was the first time when I was basically not just doing work for myself, but
Hmm.
I was rather also leading a team.
Okay.
And we grew the team between 2015 to 2021 when I left. The team grew from, I think, I was the first employee to having about 60, 70 odd people purely into information security, pen testing space.
And what was your role? What was your role in particular over there?
So, just like every other startup, there were too many hats that I was wearing. but the most prominent hats were as the regional director for Not So Secure. So I was basically handling all the technical operations. And then the other side, so the company dealt with trainings and pen testing. So I was dealing with all the pen testing operation, as well as I was the leading trainer for most of the cutting edge courses. So we would basically get the courses out. I would be the guinea pig to demonstrate the courses for first few instances. Everything works fine, then other people would come in. There were a couple of other good trainers along with me. Sunil was there, and a bunch of other people. All of us collectively would form the training wing of Not So Secure. So my role was more of like, if the need be, I'm a server admin. If the need be, I'm the janitor. If the need be, I am the director. So whatever works.
And that's interesting, right? So even like I'm 26 and I've done around 8 internships. I failed thrice. Failed thrice in my own startups. But all across the journey, I've loved one thing. Like even if God forbid if something goes wrong and I have to go back to working, I definitely go back to a startup. Wearing multiple hats is the biggest achievement that I think one can have. If like I would really suggest
Fun.
everyone in the audience, like, if you've never worked with the startup, go work with the startup. That's a different journey altogether.
Yep.
Like not just for the entrepreneur, but also for each and every employee. At least till the startup grows to say 40th or 50th employee, it is
Yes.
very
Yes.
multiple hat kind of thing. And then after 51st employee, it starts very granularized and
Yes.
silo based working. But I think before that, it's great.
Yep.
Great way to learn and grow.
Yep.
Like I fondly remember one of my internship at Oizom, where I coincidentally met my co-founder as well, the person who is a co-founder
Awesome.
with Miho, Jimish.
Awesome.
So that is like it has been a different journey altogether in that sense as well. So
Yep.
coming to your journey as a trainer, when
Yeah.
do you remember when was your first training? Like when was the first training that you gave and how did it go?
That was a fun story. So 2016, I was teaching Linux. So I think it was RHEL 3 at that point, and I was supposed to teach a class about Red Hat Certified Engineer course, RHCE.
Mm-hmm.
And as luck have it, I had a class full of about 20 people,
Mm-hmm.
all of them having 20 years of experience in Unix environments.
Is Unix that old? First question.
Unix is old. Unix is old.
Okay.
So this was 2006-7 time frame. Unix has been there. I think 70s or 80s Unix have been there. These people have basically dealt with the internals of the systems. And I was supposed to take a class teaching them about how Unix and Linux are different and what are the advantages of Linux. The class went most of the time like, yeah, buddy, we know this. Move forward. So it was like just like you have a ragging session as the first day of the college.
Yeah.
That was my ragging session.
Interesting. And then when were you able to give them any of the aha moments in the whole thing?
Uh, there were a couple of things. So
Okay.
the fun part was with Unix, they were very much hands-on. They were doing a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
But with Linux also, there were other aspects where we were exploring. There were differences in the way tools would operate. And there were some of those differences they were not aware of. And that is, I think, where my first learning came, that if you don't know something, just say it out that I don't know. Get back to them with what you know, and
Yeah.
don't try to push it around.
True. I think even if you take a step back more and just try to understand, probably understand your audience well,
Exactly.
and go very specific to your audience rather than going
Yep.
broader.
Yep.
Like that, I see a lot of course creators that speak to me. They're like, I'm like, who is your TG? They're like, because anybody who wants to learn LinkedIn marketing. But if you go with anybody as a word, you would also come across a digital marketer. You will also come across a student. You will also come across a
Yes.
housewife. And
Yes.
all three of them require a different set of curriculum, different set of
Yep.
approach.
Yep.
Right? Makes sense.
So prerequisites. So in our training courses, we define a set of prerequisites. Like, for example, a very common prerequisite I put out is the person should be well versed or at least hands-on with command prompt, because a lot of my trainings require you to type commands. If I have to teach you how to open a command prompt in an administrative mode or how to open a command prompt itself, then you're not the target audience for me. And I would prefer not to have you in the class and do a disservice to you, do a disservice to others.
True.
So that prerequisite is very, very important on trainings.
And so when it comes to offline trainings, you mentioned you did a lot of
Yeah.
trainings in the conferences and stuff like that as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
How did you crack them? Like that is a very good way of building your brand, yourself as a
Yep.
brand,
Yep.
right? So how did you crack them? What are
So
some of the tips that you would want to share as well on the same
okay.
lines?
Couple of points to keep in mind. Trainings is a business. For
True.
conferences, trainings is a business. That's how they
Mm.
earn money.
Mm.
You can't go too niche in a training, and
Mm.
you can't go too broad in a training.
True.
So like today, if I start saying that, hey, I am going to offer you a training on how to hack ChatGPT, conferences might not be interested in that because they'll be like, this is way too much a novelty right now. There are too many unknowns in this. We don't know how many people would be joining in. But if I then go and say, hey, how to write creative prompts for ChatGPT, people might be interested. But at the same time, if I go and say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to write a report, no one is interested because that's a very sort of topic which cannot be converted into a lot of hands-on activity. And whenever in a conference space you provide a training, people prefer doing hands-on training. The reason being, there are already talks happening. If you're going to do a lecture, why would someone sit for 8 hours or 16 hours to listen to your lecture? They would much rather listen your 1 hour lecture and be done with it.
True.
So expanding the material into a class format, the important bit is keep a topic, and you also have to start looking at the market space. Like for example, if a conference is around Android security and you submit a talk or a training which is around Android and iOS security, and then someone else submits a training which is around Android security, there's a very high chance your iOS security portion would be a negative thing for you. So read the space.
But taking a step back, how did you in the first place find these events where trainings are happening? Because it's a very early on signal.
Okay.
Like for me,
Yep.
my discovery is
Yep.
when I come across an advertisement, and that's already too late.
Yes. Yes. So there are a bunch of different things that I've been doing. It's not a 100% accurate method. So one is in my space, there's a very common site called cfptime.org, which is basically for tracking conference call for papers.
Okay.
It's not a call for training tracker, but it's a call for papers tracker.
Okay.
The problem is mostly the paper call comes after the training call has ended. So this does not work directly. But if I today go and look, okay, what were the calls open 9 months back? What is the current status of those conferences? Because if they did a call for paper 9 months back, right now they might actually be doing a call for training. So that's one angle. The second angle goes all the social media platforms. Most of the conferences are active in Twitter and LinkedIn spaces. So Twitter and LinkedIn, both of them allow you to search for keywords. So call for trainings, CFT are common keywords that I basically have like tabs open with those hashtags in them. So for Twitter, I use TweetDeck, which allows me to follow a hashtag. So I have a hashtag follow which tweets that, hey, we have a call for training open, I get a list there. Similarly, a Google alert, you can just set a Google alert for call for trainings. As soon as a page comes up online and Google indexes it, you get an alert on your inbox that, hey, a call for training page is there.
Makes sense.
And then you tweak things around. So first is to get the set of conferences where you apply. Once you have applied, once you have started looking at it, the other angle would be look at the resume of people who are training in a conference of your choice. What are the other places where they have trained?
Okay.
Most of them would list that as a resume entry, as the proud point. Like I started with NullCon, CoCon, I then talked about Black Hat, DEF CON, and a bunch of other names. Look at all those names. How are they accepting call for trainings? A lot of times, and we've done this multiple times. We would mail the conference, hey, you don't have a training track. I deliver training at XYZ conferences. Would you like to do a training track? There are XYZ advantages. You just have to get a hotel space, and you arrange people. People will pay you. You get extra money from it. You pay some money to the trainers, and it's a win-win for everyone.
True.
So a couple of conferences have actually started doing trainings because we approached them. We had a discussion. They liked the idea, and they floated training offerings. So at times it is you look at it from a passive model. At times it is you approach them, and the worst thing that can happen is you won't get selected. You're anyways not
There's
getting
nothing to lose
selected.
here.
Yeah, if you don't apply, you're anyways not getting selected.
True. I agree. So basically, I think this is a very good learning as well for when I say as an entrepreneur is you have to ask. Like if you don't ask, nothing happens.
Yep.
Like if you don't ask, then anyways you're not getting anything. If you ask, you might get something.
Yeah, I mean, be persuasive,
Yeah.
but be cautious. Don't overdo it.
It's
Sweet
it's also
balance.
called as this is also called as infatuation somewhere. So where we're funded by Upeka, right? So
Yeah.
we got a session from Professor Saras. She has done a lot of
Okay.
research in entrepreneurship. She took a session called Power of Infatuation. That's where she's like, I wouldn't even leave a co-passenger on a flight. I would just probably approach them politely saying that I have something to share. What do you want to be living to talk? And that
Yep.
ask is basically opens up a lot of doors.
Yep.
Like the way Akash connected us. Like I just made an ask on
Yes.
my monthly emailer that I'm looking for people to host on the podcast, and if you're connected to valuable people who are doing great in the space, would you can you please connect? And that's how this worked
That's
out.
how we got
So
connected. Yeah.
yes. So I think that's a very good learning for everyone to take it away. Coming to the third part of your journey is basically uh, doing trainings day in day out at Not So Secure.
Yeah.
How did it start and how was it going, and what were certain numbers that you achieved using those?
Okay, so I can't share the revenue numbers, but I can share some of the
The
conference
number of trainings
numbers.
could be
Yeah.
that's it.
So I would say I was at one point I was doing about 3 trainings a month, and we were more of like, and one training would basically be about a 4-day training, 4 or 5 day training, and we were I think about 7, 8 people in the company who were mostly doing focused on around trainings. I was also responsible for ensuring that people are not getting overworked. So from doing 3 trainings or spending 3 weeks in a month, we were basically aiming for having a person do maybe 2 trainings at max in a month, and then spread it over to multiple people. Uh, Within a single class, I think the biggest class that we have taken is the Black Hat training class for, I think it was advanced infrastructure hacking training session that we took, a 4-day class with a head count of, I think, about 170 people in a single sitting.
Makes sense.
So that
I
was the
think
biggest. Yeah.
the number of trainings a week is definitely a good thing to set up because
Yep.
so I used to do a lot of training for Microsoft.
Yeah.
And I was a trainer. I was the person who was sourcing the schools and training the teachers all end-to-end cycle. At times, I used to do 6 trainings a week, one training every day, or probably 2 trainings in a day. And I used to feel that my content is not right. Like there's something that is going wrong. I ended
Yep.
up training around 10,000 odd teachers, but I know that around 700 or 800 odd people have not liked it just because it was repetitive for me, which was making the content effective. Which
Yep.
which makes sense. So I think you mentioned something interesting on how the support worked in a training. Can you share that as well?
Yep. So because most of our hands-on, most of our trainings are sort of about 60% to 70% hands-on, and then there's a video and audio media around it. So that being me standing on stage, or other trainers are standing on stage and talking about it. The hands-on part means everyone has to do the same set of exercises.
True.
The fun is when you put humans in the mix. Every human does things differently.
True.
So I have done testing. I have tested my material. I know if you copy this command and paste it here in that right space, this is the output.
True.
can guarantee about 50% of the people would have some differences in the output, whatever be the reason. And that's the point where people start getting confused. So now need someone to double check with, they now need guidance. So what we did was we set it up a ratio, 10, 15 people at max associated with one support trainer.
Okay.
So if I am teaching a class of say 30 people, I would have me on stage and one more person available. If the class is say like a 170 odd class, we would have about 10 support staff available. Now, the important bit was to ensure that I communicate at the very beginning that everyone that is marked as a support staff does not means they are anyways lower knowledgeable than me.
True.
The general problem that comes is because someone is on stage, the assumption goes that this is the knowledgeable person, everyone else is a notch down.
And I think India, at least, like at
It's a
times they would literally wait for you to get down from the stage and answer their query.
it's
Even
not
if they
India.
have a help available next hand, they won't. Like I don't know, somehow it's a low trust society. People cannot
Like I said,
trust.
it's not India. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. I
Oh.
have trained in Australia, United States, UK, a bunch of different European countries, Singapore, everywhere. It's the same. The students trust the person who's talking. So right at the start, I basically introduce my support trainers and I tell them that, hey, you know what? I am the monkey who basically likes to talk, so I am on stage. Everyone else is equally capable, and rather I require their support in certain areas where I am not knowledgeable. So you can ask them questions and they'll be able to answer freely. And that's the other part. The background goes, each one of them have gone through the same course material 20 times, and they would have encountered every single type of errors that you can think of and have shared notes with each other. So most of the time, my support staff would be in that position where we'd be walking by, we will see an error screen, and our response would be, hey, buddy, you did that wrong. Because we already have encountered that, we've seen that, and we are in that position to give them an accurate, pinpointed statement for them to move forward.
Okay.
That's the support thing that worked. Mostly, this is how it works in the, say, live space.
Okay.
The virtual space goes into a different.
Well, I was just coming to that. Like I understood your journey till doing and growing in offline courses as a market. Now cut to March 2022, everything shut, nothing going offline, nothing coming in-house or something of that sort. How did that transition go, and when did it strike to you that we'll have to do the transition for sure?
Okay. So bunch of things we were anyways working towards. So we were working towards establishing a channel, communication channel. We were working towards creating a gamification system in the picture. What we realized was labs were via VPN or via communication media. Everyone needed to be on the internet to work on the labs. The tricky pieces were ensuring that people are actually learning, ensuring that when they have a problem, their doubts are solved. Everything else around it was more or less easy for us because we were anyways delivering over internet the labs part of the equation. The moment you take the person away from stage and put them behind a computer screen, the biggest challenge that we had was the companies were like, hey, you know what? Instead of doing an 8-hour class, why don't you do your 2-day class into 4 days of 4 hours each? We did a couple of runs of those, and I basically put my foot down and I was like, nope, not doing. Very limited number of sessions we did that way because that was a waste of time for everyone.
And this was offline or online?
If you are marked for 4 hours, this was online. So online, we're doing a Zoom call or we're doing a GoToMeeting or whatever media available. We are giving the session to them. And the company would say, hey, do a 4-hour can happen the next day. So the problem that comes with that is because the employee is only 4 hours on the training, the remaining 4 hours they're supposed to work. which means their emails are on, which means their Slack is on. They're never able to focus on the training itself.
True.
So we made sure that, hey, if you're doing it, do it in a 2-day straight set or a 4-day straight set. Give your employees the time to actually work on it.
True.
So that was the way we handled it. I'm now trying to solve that same problem in a slightly different manner. I'll talk about that later. But the biggest problem now was, earlier we could just roam around and see what the people were having as problems on their screen. Now we needed a media by which we can share this.
True.
And I think you would agree on this, and every trainer would agree on this. GoToMeeting, Zoom, pick up any software of choice for audio-visual communication. They are crap at chatting. They are crap at ensuring that you're able to communicate properly.
True. They've been made that way that you should be focusing on, rather than chat, you should be focusing on the video or audio communication itself. Like they're designed that way that you get irritated of the chat and move them to audio and video, which is not quite possible for every scenario, right?
Exactly. I mean, if I'm doing a 1-hour talk and I have a 30-minute question answer session after it, it's a easily matchable thing. But if I'm doing a training session which is supposed to last for 2 days, and I have a question window of like 5 minutes in which I can answer questions, giving the stage to someone else basically takes out 2-3 minutes of it.
True.
So I won't be able to answer all the questions.
True.
We needed a separate channel. So that is where Discord, Slack, Teams, we experimented with all of them. Every one of them have their own advantages.
True.
Discord is very good as the open thing, as the easy to approach thing. But because Discord is also something people use a lot aggressively for gaming and whatnot things, their IDs are generally connected to a lot of things. And they get annoyed with associating that with something of learning. Slack, on the other hand, gives them a very corporatish feel.
And most of the time, these companies would also have their Slack channel. So if in case you activate that,
so we can basically do a sync up there. The dark horse for us was Teams. No one loves Teams, but I loved a fact about Teams. There was an inbuilt feature.
A different opinion. I do love Teams, and I've trained 10,000 folks to use Teams. I love it because of the fact that I know what powerful things that you have.
Yep. So with Teams, there's an inbuilt feature of auto translate.
Yep.
So I have trained people who won't be able to speak in English. I won't be able to speak in their language, but we start the day with good morning to each other in our own languages. And then we are able to see in the other person is see in their own language what we have been trying to say. The only caveat is I can't construct like complex, lengthy sentences.
True.
My sentences are limited to like.
But I think that is
max.
also improving in Teams, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, true.
I mean, even if that is not there, the problem that comes is the way translation works. Different languages may not even have a word for what you're saying.
True.
So you do discussions in the simplest words possible.
Yep.
But that's where I used Teams a lot, and we are able to sort out discussions. Important bit there is, generally what happens in Discord and in Slack is people create a channel, everyone can join in and everyone can ask questions.
Yeah.
Problem that I've realized is different cultures have different expectations about asking questions. Asian culture do not want to ask questions in public and be sounded as a fool.
A lot of people have a different mindset on asking questions. That is what I was acknowledging at.
Yep.
That so Asia, I understand that a lot of people either want anonymity while asking questions, or second, they want it to be very personal, kind of an communication with the trainer itself. A middle layer also won't work for them, even if it is equally knowledgeable or something of that sort. But coming to breaking it down for people to understand it better, your offline marketing and communication would have changed a lot to in a different way when it comes to online.
Yeah.
What are the 3 major points that you changed in the communication that you used to do?
So first thing was to convince people that they're not losing out if they are on a online media, because everyone was like, the physical trainings gives me training, online is basically just I'm looking at a screen
Just
and
a
I won't be
fad.
able to track anything and do anything. So that's where
Yeah.
the gamification thing came up. So what we did was we created a web page on our website describing all of these things, like I was talking about creating a channel. So what we did as part of the channel thing was we created private channels where the individual would be there, I would be there as a trainer, and a support staff would be allocated. So support can answer questions async. And if there is a question that I need to answer, which is like a common question coming up, that will be flagged to me. So I'll answer that on the live environment. So
Interesting.
all those, what we did was we created a page which showed that, yes, you can communicate in your language, you can ask questions privately, you have a document available where all the answers are there. If there is a doubt, there are support staff available. We also introduced the gamification angle in terms, every challenge or every hands-on assignment that we had a dedicated end result goal, and that goal could then be tracked into a system. So they would solve a challenge, they would get a key, they would take that key, put it into the other system. The other system would then tell them that you scored 10 points. So
Interesting.
at any point during the class, they can actually see, okay, how many points I've achieved, how many points are left, what are the challenges that are pending, and they can see how other people are doing it.
Makes sense.
The problem is, in the virtual world, because you're not there to egg them to do things, they need media to have that sort of a competition. So that's where these capture the flag setups come into picture, which basically tell, hey, someone else is able to score more than me, so I should be in the top. And then people start working on those things.
So if I sum it up,
Yeah,
basically transition from online to offline, there are a couple of things. So offline to online, sorry.
yeah,
There are a couple of things to keep in mind. One is basically the communication has initial focus has to be in telling people that okay, boss, offline is equal to online. Don't worry about that.
yes, yes,
Second, adding choosing the right tool to do your content is depending on the
yep,
complexity of the content that you're going to deliver.
yep,
Third, choosing the right way of gamifying and making it more engaging for folks to, be around in the particular call as well, particular
yep,
session as well. And the fourth one would be to ensure that they are able to get support in multiple ways, be
yes,
it personal, be it group, be it in a video format or something of that sort as well.
yes,
And the fifth would be to keep in touch with them after the session and getting it bringing
definitely,
it together to the
yep,
accessible community.
yep,
Yeah, I think this is a good checklist for people to follow. If you're transitioning from offline to online, these are
to
the few
online,
things
yep.
that you should keep in mind. To sum it up, can you please tell us what you're building today, and how
Sure.
what help would you need from the community? I think a
All
lot of
right.
people would reach out to you saying that this is what you can offer, probably.
Awesome. So I am right now building a company called Siphonoid Research.
Mm-hmm.
Based on my years of experience, what I've realized is I wanted to teach innovative stuff to people. So the
Mm-hmm.
company is a research-powered training company. The
Mm-hmm.
main focus would be on research, and any research activity that we do
Mm-hmm.
comes out in the form of training courses. So
Okay.
right now we're doing two training courses. There's a attack and defend Android applications course.
Mm-hmm.
Then we are right now in the process of launching a breaking and fixing real web applications course. So I think by around April end, we would be ready to go to market with that.
Okay.
And both the courses are geared towards people who want to understand how to find flaws in the system, how to fix them, and how to keep them secure. So the holistic picture of security.
Okay.
Then there are newer areas of, so this is what is coming out. The way things work is we start researching, and then maybe in 6 months or 1 year time frame, the content would become training. So right now the research is going on around decentralized web, around supply chain security. So hopefully in next couple of months we would have courses around that. DevSecOps again would be a combination of all what we are covering, and in a single package as a course. The places where I'm looking for sort of help is interesting people who are willing to do research work with us, collaborate with us. More than welcome to figure out a way we can collaborate with each other. If people are interested in the areas that I talked about, and they are trying to build something around this, would love to have a chat with them. Anyone who is in the product space or who is building their own companies and they have their own security concerns, I would be more than happy to talk with them, give them some guidance from my side, my experience, because I want to create a content which is actually going to help them in a longer run.
True.
So if I get more exposure to all tricky scenarios that you folks are facing, I would try to cook the answers for them in the content itself.
Makes
So
sense.
in a year's time, you don't actually have to ask those questions.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. I think this is super interesting, and with the growing online times, security is going to be becoming a more and more of a concern, and this would really be helpful that way. Uh, Thank you, Anant. Thanks a lot for
Thanks a
joining
lot.
us. A last two things that I would want it from you is one learning or one quote that you would want to share that you firmly believe in, and one book a person should read to grow their business.
Okay, so it's not one but two quotes. One, uh, don't idolize people.
Hmm.
Everyone has their own journey and their own life. Everyone is working towards their own goals. Don't try to just idolize someone. The
Okay.
second is be open in saying, I don't know, but then go back and figure out what you don't know.
Makes sense. Makes
So
sense.
those are the two quotes. The book that I would suggest, and this is more of a personal thing, uh, How to Say No.
That's very important. And learning that early on in any business is must.
Yep,
Must.
yep.
True.
So there's a book. I'm not remembering the exact name. I can share that name with you in a minute.
Hmm.
But the book is about 365 ways to say no,
Okay. Okay.
and effectively multiple scenarios in which how can you say no.
Interesting. I'll look it up and add it in the
Yep.
description as well. Yep. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Anand. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us, folks. Thank you.
Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity.